Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows don't have the best pilot episode, and giving that a second chance might just change your mind.
Here we take that chance for you, and let you know our opinion on if shows there's more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this time will be the Twilight Zone.
We just did the Twilight Zone, Justice.
Did we?
Yes. Well, no, we just did an interstitial episode called Inside the Cockpit, but on October 2nd, we did the Twilight Zone.
I don't know. I don't think so.
We did, for a fact. You know, it's that show from the 60s, starring Rod Serling. I thought his name was Rod Serling for, like, the past 30 years of my life, 28 years of my life.
Yeah, different show. We watched The Twilight Zone.
So what are we reviewing this time?
The Twilight Zone.
Okay.
The 2019 reboot by Jordan Peele.
Ah, different show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is the second part of a 3-part Halloween Twilight Zone series.
Yes.
For Fright Flight this year, which again has been moved to Halloween for your listening pleasure.
Yes.
Will be the Twilight Zone movie, which interestingly enough is based on the episode from the 1960s Twilight Zone.
20,000, Nightmare at 20,000 feet in the air.
Nightmare at 30,000 feet?
Nightmare at 20,000 feet in the air. Which our second episode, which we talk about, Nightmare at 30,000 feet in the air, is based on. Cruising altitudes of planes have changed since the 60s.
No, technology doesn't advance.
Fair, actually.
That's why this is a live show across AM radio.
We can't afford an AM station. This is ham radio.
We don't pay for the station, obviously. This is pirate radio. Matey. Remember.
But that means that FBI's going to come after us because it's piracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir. But no. So Twilight Zone's first episode for the 2019 series is The Comedian.
Starring Kumail Nanjiani.
Who is a fantastic comedian in his own right.
And actor.
Such a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
I think oftentimes his ability as an actor gets underplayed because he's been in a bunch of comedies and like...
Yeah, and he plays the funny guy because he's a comedian.
Comedy actors don't get the respect they deserve most of the time, especially when like they have range.
Yeah.
Like Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Or Kumail.
Yeah. Like Kumail in The Big Sick is fantastic and he plays a comedy role for the majority of that. But it's also a movie that gets very serious. And he's fucking fantastic in it.
Exactly. So this episode opens with Camille on stage.
Yes, performing a bit about the Second Amendment.
Well, you see, one side of the argument believes that
nobody should have guns except for the soldiers in ground warfare.
The other side is like, well, we can own machine guns because of the Second Amendment. And you can't regulate that because
of the Second Amendment.
But what they're not realizing is the first 3 words of the Second Amendment are AWOL regulated.
And the entire amendment is only 27 words long.
Which means that those 3 words are 11.1% of the Second Amendment. AWOL regulated.
Yeah.
That's the joke. It goes on a little bit longer.
Yeah, he compares it to being like, yeah, it'd be like if your pilot came over the radio on an airplane and was like, hey, good news, bad news. Good news, we'll get you 89% of the way to your destination. Bad news, that does mean we are going to crash into the ocean.
Yes.
And the crowd does not respond. They don't find it funny at all.
Yeah, because it's not funny. The jokes are not funny. Like,
they're not well delivered.
It's not even like barely a joke.
Yeah, like, I would say it has, like, some good bones that he can work with there.
It's got the framework of a joke, but it's not a joke.
Yeah.
So, after completely bombing his set,
he walks off stage,
goes to the bar, where he orders specifically something cheap brown with no ice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like, kind of his go-to at the bar. Later, it'll be, like, a sign that the bartender now, like, recognizes him as, like, a successful person because the bartender knows his order without having to be asked, but... Right now, that's what he has to order. Mm-hmm. And he's met by his friend Dee Dee, who is also a comedian.
Yes.
And she's getting ready to go perform, but first she razzes him about how bad his performance was.
Yeah, like you know, it might be better if he put actual jokes in his stand-up set.
Yeah. He's like, oh, what, do you want me to tell jokes about, like, cats and dogs and, like, domestic life. Like, I'm not gonna like sink to that level. Comedy has to mean something, and it has to
make you think. It has to matter. If it doesn't, your comedy's not going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
So then his fellow comedian Didi's like, no, my routine is good. I have 59,000 followers. Like, look, comedy is comedy. You should be more like Joe over there, points to another comedian at the bar, who's absolutely drunk, harassing a woman.
And he's been harassing her this entire time in the background, so it's been an ongoing thing. But she's like, yeah, he's funny. And then Camille's character, whose name is
Samir. He's like, oh yeah, so I should murder people like him. And she's like, hey, the courts found that he didn't kill anyone.
Samir's gonna be like, well, the court's fucked up. And she's like, well, you don't have to be like him in that way, but like, funny is funny.
And he's funny. You're not.
Yeah. And so she's talking about, like, she mentions her follower account again, and then she goes to walk turn off.
Yep.
And somebody behind Samir says, it's not about follower count, it's about adjusted gross income.
Yeah.
When Samir, like, cuts him off and finishes the quote, because the quote's from a famous comedian
J.C. Willer.
In the world of this episode of Twilight Zone, called J.C. Willer, who is played by
Tracy Morgan.
Thank you.
And we know this because when Samir finishes the quote, he turns around and he's like, wait a minute, you are J.C. Willer.
Yeah, and so apparently, like, J.C. Willer has just kind of disappeared. He's been gone. And so Samir is immediately like, well, I mean, I know my set wasn't great, but, like, do you have any pointers? Like, anything you can teach me? Like, and he starts rambling. He's like, I would give you anything. Just like, I would give you my dog. Well, it's not my dog. It's my girlfriend's dog. But we've been together since high school, so it's kind of my dog, but it's not really my dog. It's her dog. It's our dog. You know, it's and J.C. Willer cuts him off and goes,
now that shit's funny.
That's funnier than the second minute at least.
Yeah, don't talk about politics. Don't say anything about stuff like that.
Just talk about
yourself,
like your high school girlfriend.
You're dating a girl in high school. He's like, no, I'm not dating a girl in high school. He's like, I don't care. That's funny.
Yeah. And this conversation goes on for a little bit.
Yep.
But eventually, JC does give him some actual advice. He's like, look, if you want to be successful,
if you want to have it all,
like you said, I had it all, you have to give them something real.
Mm-hmm.
But when you give it to them, and when the crowd accepts it, it's no longer yours. You no longer have it. It's gone.
Yep.
And, like, that's kind of just the end of the advice JC gives him. But Samir has a second set that night, the late set.
Yeah.
So he goes on, he starts doing the Second Amendment bit, and then he realizes how badly he's bombing, and he veers off. He's like, you know, you guys should all look at yourselves right now. If you could see your faces, you would know that your face looks just like my dog when your face looks just like my dog when she's taking a shit.
Yeah, you're confused, like, what's going on? Why are you looking at me? Don't make this awkward. How can there has to be a better way to do this. And they're all laughing, and his set goes really well now.
Yeah, he's like, you know, and my dog's name is Cat, and, like, I know you think that's a bad name for a dog. That's only because it is a bad name for a dog. And, like, the set continues on, and eventually the night's over.
He goes back to his apartment and his girlfriend. But when he walks into his apartment, Kat's not there at first. So he walks in the bedroom and he's like, hey, hun, I killed it. She's passed out on the bed with some papers on the bed and earplugs in.
Mm-hmm.
She half wakes up and he's like, I killed it. I've never felt that great on stage before. It was amazing. I told a more personal bit and they really connected to it. It was fantastic. And she's like, that's good. He's like, yeah, I'm going to take the dog for a walk though.
Do you know where Kat is? And she's like, I thought you said dog. What?
Yes.
And, like, she's just confused because to her, they don't have a dog and they've never had a dog. And why would you name a dog Cat? That's terrible.
Yeah. So here, after Samir panics for a bit, wondering where their dog went, we pan across the apartment set over all the way to, like, the initial living room, and we get our introduction to the Twilight Zone bit, which is the same classic Twilight Zone intro, and it's delivered by Jordan Peele.
Mm-hmm. It's the same, like, voice cadence and, like, tonality as Rod Serling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Rod Serling, though, and, like,
yeah.
I think Peele could carry the show. I do think he's gonna suffer from, like,
comparisons to Rod Serling,
but I think if you've never seen Twilight Zone before, Jordan Peele could be your Rod Serling, and it could be just as iconic.
I would agree.
That said, what I didn't like about this already, we're 11 minutes into this episode.
Before we enter into the Twilight Zone?
Now, this is a longer episode. The premiere episode is a 54 minutes long episode.
Yeah.
But we don't get Peele's, there's no opening dialogue, no opening narration. Mm-hmm. There's no, like, Twilight Zone opening until we're 11 minutes into the episode.
Yeah.
And
we've already entered the Twilight Zone at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I think J.C. Willer's appearance is the beginning of the entrance into the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I would agree. And, like, I feel like you could have done the intro without having to give us JC's speech about giving the audience and they'll take it and it'll be gone.
Mm-hmm.
You, after he bombs a set, you do the whole Twilight intro and just be like, and then Samir wants to achieve, like, his best at comedy, something along these lines. But is he willing to give everything he can to make it?
Yeah.
Is he willing to pay what the Twilight Zone will take? Or something like that. It's somewhere along those lines of what the intro is, but you do it beforehand. It doesn't have to be directly before we realize kind of what's going on, and that's fine. The Twilight Zone, in many episodes, wasn't like, hey, here's what your episode's going to be.
I'm gonna jump ahead to episode 2 real fast, not like in a spoiler sense, but episode 2 is similar in that it's about 6-7 minutes before we get the intro, and that episode is much shorter. It's like 30-something minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that's my least favorite thing of the new Twilight Zone, the 2019 Twilight Zone, is that it's not framed. Like, the 1960s, the Rod Serling Twilight Zone, the episodes are framed between Rod Serling's introduction and his outro.
Yes. Now, at least I would say with the second episode, it's not directly we've stepped into the Twilight Zone already. When we get there, it's maybe not. It's close. It's like right on the edge of it.
Yeah,
But no, I completely agree.
As a framing device, it requires being used at the front and back, and this isn't doing that.
Oh yeah, we didn't have one at the back of either of these episodes, which is sad.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They just didn't feel like they summed things up the way that the other ones do.
No, it's decidedly different.
Yeah, which isn't bad. I just didn't register as a Twilight Zone outro to me then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to Samir's story.
Well, after Peele does his Twilight Zone speech, we then get the opening. And it's obviously different, but it has a lot of homages to the OG opening.
Mm-hmm.
And
in between the peaks of a man's fear and knowledge.
Oh, yeah. The speech is entirely the same. I was talking about the visuals.
Yeah.
They're very referential to the OG's opening images, but different. And it's actually really high quality with the CG they're doing for the opening credits. And then we go back to Samir.
So we cut to the next day, next night apparently.
Outside of Eddie's, the comedy club.
And Samir has his nephew with him, Devin. And Samir introduces Devin to his friend Dee Dee.
Well, they're posting up dog flyers for his missing dog cat.
Oh yes, that's correct.
And he thinks it's just a joke. Like, Samir's like, oh, Rena's just fucking with me.
But Devin thinks it's also just a joke, but in the sense that it's part of Samir's, like, bit.
For the stand-up or something tonight.
Yeah.
And Samir's just like, okay, you and Rena are both playing a joke on me, it's fine, whatever. So and then they go inside.
Then they go inside, and Samir introduces Devin, his nephew, to Dee Dee. Turns out Devin's not his nephew. It's his girlfriend's nephew.
They've just been together since high school, so.
Mm-hmm. And Devin kind of roasts Samir here. He's like, oh yeah, actually, you're why I wanted to get into comedy. But, you know, like, I wanted to be you, but good.
And Dee Dee laughs. She's like, little man's got skills.
Mm-hmm. In addition to that, Devin also makes, like, an analysis of the sign behind the bar that says Eddie's. Mm-hmm. It's just the word Eddie's, EDDIES.
Yes.
No apostrophe. And there's a, like, paper sign taped to it that says no apostrophes.
Yeah. And Devin goes, that's funny. And Samir's like, what do you mean?
And he makes an observation about how, like, the place is Eddie's, as in, like, it's owned by Eddie, so it is Eddie's, and it belongs to him, so you would expect an apostrophe.
Yeah.
But there isn't an apostrophe, and so that breaks your expectation to begin with.
So, assumedly, then the story's just called Eddie's, no apostrophe. Happens all the time with businesses.
But then, it is Eddie's, as in
Possessive.
He owns it, but they just don't use an apostrophe, no apostrophes. Like,
apostrophes aren't allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it, like, subverts expectations multiple times in different ways.
Yeah, and Samir's like, but it's kind of funny.
So Samir goes up to do his stand-up bit.
Starts with the Second Amendment bit again.
And just bombing.
Yeah. No one's paying attention. Everyone's on their phone. Even his nephew is on his phone.
And so he's like, you know, you guys are all like my nephew. I can't get through to him unless I text him. Like, I have to be communicating via a phone or he just doesn't get it.
Yeah. And they all start chuckling.
And he roasts his nephew a little bit.
Yeah, because Devin's still looking at his phone. He's like, hey, you, pay attention, motherfucker. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about you.
And, like, he continues to roast him a little bit, razz him, but, like, the crowd eats it up. And then sometime during the set, Samir looks and notices Devin's just gone.
Yeah. Well, more particularly, we, as an audience, know when he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So he's telling a joke, and he hasn't said his nephew's name yet at any point. He's just like, yeah, this 10-year-old was just dunking on my act before this, and, like, okay. He's like, actually, you know what? I don't know if it makes it worse or not. He's not even my nephew. He's my girlfriend's nephew.
Actually, you know what? I do know. It does make it worse. Because if it was my nephew, at least it would be still in the family. The family would be winning.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's just some stranger.
Yeah. And everyone's laughing. He's like, everyone give it up for Devin Singh. And then when we look over to where Devin is, Devin's just gone now.
Mm-hmm. So Samir comes off stage and he's talking to Dee Dee, and she's like, really good set. Like,
surprisingly good. You had jokes.
And he's like, have you seen Devin? I hope I wasn't too hard on him. And she's like,
I have no idea who the fuck you're talking about.
I've had a little too much of Samir for the evening, and I have to go. I'm on stage next.
Yeah. So Samir is searching around, walks outside, searching around, asking people. No one has seen Devin.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to call him, and he tells his phone to do it. And his phone's like trying to call Devin's mother. And when he tries to find Devin, he's just like, there's no Devin in your phone book.
So he ends up going home
mm-hmm.
with no 10-year-old. And he gets in, and his girlfriend is there, and so is his girlfriend's, like...
Mentor,
maybe a boss, too, I couldn't tell.
It's unclear.
It's unclear.
But his name is David.
I can't remember his last name.
Kendall.
David Kendall, yeah. And Samir's like, oh, cool, great, yeah.
I didn't know you had company.
And so he goes to walk off, and he's like, have you seen Devin? I don't know what happened to Devin. Like, he was with me at the show, and then he was gone.
Yeah. To first say, though, when he comes in, David greets him, and he's like, oh, we were just talking about how comedies are, and it's super important, and blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, brushes him off, ignores him, and asks about Devin. And she's like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. He's like, you know, your sister's nephew? I mean, your sister's son, your nephew? And she's like, I don't like that joke. It's not good. You know my sister can't have kids.
And then David's like, yeah, but that's why comedy's important, because you have to go into dark places to subvert expectations and to actually, like, make meaning.
Yeah.
He's pretentious and obnoxious.
So Samir walks over to a photo that was hanging on the wall that we saw earlier.
He's like, he's in this picture. And then look at the picture, and...
he's not there. He's like, he was in this picture. He was wearing a leather jacket, and I said I made him look like a Fonz. And he was like, who's that? You're old? And she's like, that's not okay. So then he walks in the bathroom having like a panic attack. She follows, and he's muttering under his breath. He's like, it's fine. I didn't kill him. He didn't exist. I couldn't kill him. He just didn't exist.
Yeah. And so, like, his girlfriend follows him in, and she's like, I don't know what's going on. You said, like, how was your set? Like,
yeah.
And he's like, look, please just don't have me sent to a mental hospital. I'm not going crazy, I promise.
And she's like, yeah, no, of course not. Look, I don't know what's entirely going on, but if what you're saying is true, like, you're getting better results from, like, opening up more, being more personal on stage. And if that works for you, that's good. Like, that's a good thing. Keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. And so...
he talks to her about meeting J.C. Willer, explaining that entire, like, how he was told to be more himself on stage.
But, like, he also comes to the realization here of what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, he comes to the realization that J.C. Willer was like, if you give it to the audience, it's gone. And he's like, that's what's happened. That's what happened to Devin. That's what happened to our dog. And David from the other room is like, it sounds like therapy. It's good for art. If, like, if it's helping you get stuff out, because it's not, paying rent.
Yeah. So Reno pops her head out. She's like, that's nice, thank you. But just kind of gestures at the kitchen and closes the door.
Mm-hmm.
And they continue to talk, just kind of like narrowing down, like, hey, if this is working for you, then do it. And then David interrupts again, yelling some shit about sunlight being the best disinfectant. And yeah, he's just pretentious.
So this leads to the next night at the comedy club at Eddie's, where Samir is once again on stage.
Where, when he gets in, assumedly Eddie finds him and is like, hey, you've killed the last few nights, you're headlining.
Yeah, you're headlining tonight. And then Joe Donner, we talked about him, he's the asshole earlier that...
the drunk asshole at the bar.
That may have killed some people. We don't know exactly how. Although actually at this point we do know that it's because he drove drunk and hit a bus stop that had a mother and a child.
Yeah, literally right across from a comedy club.
Mm-hmm. And so Samir is headlining.
Mm-hmm. And Joe hears about this. He's like, hey, don't fuck it up.
And he's like,
then,
who am I kidding? You're going to fuck it up.
It's you.
So Samir goes on the stage and, as always, starts with the Second Amendment bit.
Yep.
It bombs, as always. And Joe Donner is kind of like standing in the doorway between the bar area and the comedy club, the audience area.
So then Samir tries to recycle his jokes that he told the other night about Devin, but gets a very lackluster response from the audience. They don't really register. And he's like, oh, wait, yeah, I don't have a nephew anymore.
So it's not personal anymore.
You want fresh blood.
So he's like, if you're not going to enjoy the Second Amendment stuff or any of my previous jokes, let's give it
up for the guy who was on stage before me.
Joe Donner, yeah.
He crushed it.
Not like he crushed that mother and child, but, he crushed it.
Some of his best work, actually. Yeah, he did do it. He drove drunk and killed a mother and daughter, a baby.
And who could imagine that a man with such misogynistic, sexist, racist humor would be a person who would drive drunk? Actually, you know what? No, that makes perfect sense.
That stands.
And the crowd is like just eating this up, laughing. Joe's like, what can I say? He's right. When he's right, he's right. I'm that kind of person.
And then he's at the end says, give it up for Joe Donner. And when he says Joe Donner, when we glance back over, Joe is gone now.
Yep. So it's at this point completely aware of what his comedy powers, quote unquote comedy powers are, that he starts using comedy as
weapon/tool.
It's a Death Note.
Yeah.
It's a Death Note, except we actually had this conversation mid-episode.
Yeah.
Because we had a commercial break.
It's a Death Note, but with butterfly effects, which we know for certain are real, because Devin wasn't born. That's not that Kay, he just wasn't born. Her sister cannot have children. And when he got out of the comedy club after the Joe Donner bit, the bus stop is perfectly fine.
And before this, it had been like taped up and like
Coffee tape and crushed.
Because somebody drove a car into it while drunk. So, unlike the Death Note, which is very precise and can be used as a tool to, like, carry out exactly what you want to happen, this comedy power to erase people from existence, erase things from existence, has a cascading effect.
Yeah, you're not going to get caught, but also resounding issues.
But, I mean, if you use a Death Note properly, you're not going to get caught either.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Should we go into a complete side tangent here about what Death Note is and what I'm talking about? Because, like, what if the audience doesn't know what a Death Note is?
That's on them. They should be cooler people.
But yeah, so he goes on a complete, like...
He stalks everyone he's ever known.
Yeah.
On the internet.
He starts using it to, like...
Find fucked up people.
Yeah, like bullies from high school or, like, just shitty people.
Predatory teachers.
Yeah, and we don't know how long this goes on for, but...
He starts getting fairly popular.
He is at a point where he's actually making money now. Like, he's he's a successful comedian.
Yeah.
And then him and his girlfriend get into an argument.
About David.
Because Samir is 100% certain that David Kendall, well, he is a mentor to his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. He's not just a mentor. Like, mentors don't just...
Yeah, he was trying to groom her. He was her law professor in college, and now they're friends, and he's over all the time, and, like...
Takes her out to romantic dinners, they eat in, and, like, they're always together. Like, it's not just a friendship. Like,
yeah.
David Kendall is not just looking for a mentee or a friend.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend, is just like...
What the fuck? That's not that is. You're just being jealous. I'm tired of this Samil jealous bit.
And she's also like, David Kendall wouldn't do that. And Samir's like, oh yeah, because no older white man has ever, like, been a mentee's friend because he was looking for something more. That's never happened in the history of ever.
So they're gonna fight. She storms out. And we go to his next set where he is on stage and he's talking about how, I met a murder today in real life.
Yes, he did, on the bus. Like,
he met a skinhead, a neo-Nazi skinhead, who apparently told him he'd murdered someone, and he's telling this bit, and none of it's landing.
Yeah, and, like, he does have a name for this guy, because the guy gave him a name, but it could have been a fake name. It was a one-syllable, one-word, like, first name only, and...
Or it could be that this guy just had no actual relevance to his life.
Yeah, which I think is probably closer to the truth. And so, he's bombing, nobody's, like, laughing at this.
And in walks his girlfriend.
So she's been there the entire time for this one.
Oh, yeah. But we focus in on her, and he starts in about David and older mentors who are definitely mentors. They would never be anything else.
And, like, the entire crowd starts laughing. She also starts laughing.
Yeah. And he's like, and, you try to put it out into your something other, to prevent them from being Me Too'd, and you're the bad guy.
And he ends it like he always does. Well, let's give it up for David Kendall.
Yeah.
And then after the show, he's talking to his girlfriend, and she's like, look, I have to go. I'm running late for work.
And he's like, what are you talking about? Why would they need you this late? And they're not going to fire you. Why would they fire their best lawyer? And she gets very angry, very upset, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And just like, fuck off.
So he follows her, and she apparently now works at a diner. Mm-hmm. And they get into an argument inside the diner after she started her shift.
Yep.
And she's like, look, you're selfish. You're an asshole. Everything has to be about you.
You just use other people for your material.
How long until I'm part of your material?
And so he's coming to figure out how this all happened. Like, he's still trying to work out what the fuck went wrong. And he's like, without David, she doesn't become a lawyer. She doesn't have a career in law. And we didn't go to Paris, which is where we saved our relationship, because I didn't have the money. She didn't have the money.
But he's like, I have money now. We can go to Paris now. And she's like, fuck off. Like, it's not about that.
Yeah.
Because to her, it's not about that. Because she has a different lived experience now than lived experience that he remembers having.
He's been a selfish asshole. Making fun of people for bits.
Well, also, he shunted himself into a new timeline. So, like, he doesn't have the memories necessary to actually have a relationship with this person. Because at least the last, 10 years of their life together isn't the 10 years of life together that he
has known, yeah.
Yeah. Because, again, it's not as precise as David Kendall dies. It's David Kendall never existed.
Yeah, but he's like, I have this power. She's like, no, fuck off. Leave. So he eventually does. He's back at their apartment, and he pulls out his book.
Because he's been keeping notes about everybody. Like, every person who he, does a bit on, he does research for first. and then he like notes all that stuff down, writes it around their name,
Yep.
and then once he's done, he crosses them out of the journal.
So he goes to look at it, but then he gets angry and just throws it in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes back to Eddie's, where we see him at the bar getting a drink.
Mhm.
And Dee Dee walks up and she's like, oh, so that sweet little Indian girl broke up with you. That's good. Well, not good for you, but good for her.
Yeah.
Then he's being super sad and depressed. She's just like, hey, look, if you're going to go on a murderous rampage, please don't do it when I'm around.
And she's like, and it's not because you're
Brown.
It's because you're a man. Well, kind of a man.
Yeah.
At this point, Eddie comes up and he's like, hey guys, so this person for this TV show is here and they're looking for a new cast member and they really only have 2 comedians in mind at this point, and it's you and you. So the scout is here tonight, so your sets better be the best they can be.
Yeah.
And Dee Dee's like, you don't even know our names.
Yeah.
And Eddie's like, sure I do. And then over the announce system, the speaker system,
they say Samir Wassan is up next. And he's like, he's
yes.
Samir.
And she's like, yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact they just said his name over the loudspeaker.
So then we have Samir on stage, and he's starting with the Second Amendment, but again, it's not going over. He's like, my coach was a rapist. My football coach was a rapist.
Mm-hmm.
It's not picking up. And he starts getting heckled by some guys in the crowd.
Yes.
Douchey hedge fund manager bros. They give him they give him their names. He interacts with them a bit, heckles them, starts making fun of them, and then the crowd starts laughing.
And then he says, let's give it up for these 2. He says their names.
Mm-hmm.
They disappear, and he ends his set early.
Yeah, and it's just their friend with a woman next to him now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, fuck. Like, he seems visibly fucked up by just watching him disappear right in front of his face.
And so he stumbles back into like the green room and he's talking to Dee Dee. He's like, Dee Dee's back there, and he's talking to Dee Dee. He's like, look, I can't do this. Initially, Dee Dee's like giving a lecture about how she shouldn't even be competing against him for this role for this show because
like he wasn't funny.
Because like she's been the go-to ace for this comedy club for months, if not like longer, and he's just up and coming. Like
and
he's
just like, it's fine. I'm not even gonna go on though. And she's like, fuck that, you aren't. Yes, you are.
You're good. I didn't come in here to berate you. I came in here to tell you that like if anybody else had to get it, I'm glad it's gonna be you.
No matter how this shakes out, if you win, it's good. It's a good choice. You're funny. Do your fucking best. Go out there. Like, this is good for you. It's a great opportunity. And then she gives him a kiss. And like, if I wasn't a lesbian,
well, I wouldn't be with you. I'd be like an Idris Elba type.
But I'd throw you some every now and then. Just out of respect for your comedy.
So she goes and does her set, and then it's time for Samir to go do his set in front of the agent and the rest of the crowd. And he goes up there.
Well, first he has a breakdown because he sees the no apostrophe signs on the Eddie thing.
I did forget the J.C. Wheeler shows up again.
Mm-hmm. We get Devin voice explaining the joke again, and he shows up the apostrophe sign, and he's freaking out. And then J.C. Wheeler is like, "No, man, just go out there and do it." And he's like, "What the fuck did you do?" And he's like, "I didn't do anything. I already told you.
I told you exactly what you needed to do to get what you wanted.
You asked me what I had. I had it all." And I used it all, basically.
Yeah. And so then Eddie comes in, and like, Samir's on the floor with the paper.
Yeah. He's like, what the fuck are you doing?
You're on in like 5 minutes. You gotta get.
Yeah.
So Samir was on stage and has the most epic crash out fucking ever. He's erasing everybody from existence.
He's just shouting names. He's not telling any anecdotal stories. He is just shouting names. He's like, fuck you. This person didn't share their lunch with me when we were in grade school. Fuck them.
Fuck this person's dog. Fuck this person's
parents.
dog.
You know what? Fuck it. Fuck them all.
And in the middle of this crash out, this epic crash out, which the crowd is eating up, like the more names he gives them,
the more rack is on a hinge their laughter becomes.
And then his ex-girlfriend, his ex-lawyer ex-girlfriend comes in, walks in, and interrupts his set and starts heckling them. She's like, I found your notebook. You know, the one you use to work out your jokes?
It's just names.
All it is names. You don't tell jokes. You're not a comedian. You just use this as a way to like be superior to other people.
Well, go on. Yeah, tell a joke about me.
Yeah, you go ahead and hold yourself superior to me. Tell them about me.
And so he starts off. He's like, "You're right. I'm a narcissistic person.
I'm a narcissistic asshole, and I have been for a long time. I'm selfish, and I need to talk to everybody in this room about one person in particular tonight."
Well, he's like, "But we're not going to talk about that. We need to talk about one person in particular." And you wouldn't think there's anything really bad to say about them that they're that bad. They're kind, carry lots of things to love about them, but they're a selfish piece of garbage. And it's me.
And then the crowd starts laughing again.
And it's basically, why do I want to be a comedian? And not because I want to make people laugh and make people happy, but because I want people to recognize me. It's narcissism. I want to be a comedian because of narcissism.
Yeah, I want to, in his words, he's like, I am a garbage can that I need you to feed me your attention and money.
Yep.
And then I will grow to be a bigger garbage can that needs more attention and money.
But I want to be able to say, oh, I don't want your attention or money. I just want to live a normal life. Yeah. Like, I want to get so big that I'm a garbage can, you'll walk up to me and be like, hey, I'll be like, just leave me alone. I'm just a complete garbage can, and I just want to have a normal garbage can life.
And then he ends it with, oh, let's hear it for Samir. I don't remember.
Well, he's like, well, that's all I have, and I've been.
Yeah,
Samir Wassan. And then Mike falls, mic drop, Samir Wassan is gone.
And then we cut to the end of the show. Like the club is closing up for the night. Well, it's not closing up for the night. The crowds are dispersing.
Yeah.
And
Dee Dee has finished her set.
And in the crowd is his girlfriend.
And her nephew.
And they're at the club because Devin wanted to come see
Dee Dee because he wants to be a stand-up comedian still.
Yeah. And Dee Dee and
Rena
have a bit of an interaction.
Where Rena's just like, that was a really good set. And Dee Dee's like, yeah, thanks.
And then Rena and Devin walk off. And Dee Dee goes to sit down and order a drink. And sitting next to her is J.C. Willer.
And she's like, oh, I'm a huge fan. Do you have any notes?
And he's like, yeah, if you want to connect with the crowd.
And then he starts in on that again, and we leave away from it. And then we have Jordan Peele with the outro being like, Samir Hassan wanted to do comedy. He always wanted to be somebody. But in the end,
he chose to
go back to being a nobody.
And if you want to see his encore performance, you can only do that in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. And then we pan up to a mural on the back wall, because this back wall the entire time has had a giant mural of the picture from The Shining.
Oh, it's kind of the picture from The Shining. It's in reference to The Shining. What
the
it really
ballroom picture.
What it really is it's a picture, it's a painting, and it's along the entire back wall of this comedy club, and it's just more audience.
Yeah, which makes for a really great shot when he's being unhinged, because we stretch the room some, and that picture, the mural does a lot of stretching because it itself has depth, so it looks like it continues on for like fucking ever for a while, which is, it's a very good shot. But that's the thing we haven't talked about here at all. I would say... Well, actually, we could finish this and I'll just make the stuff.
So that's the end of the first episode of the 2019 Twilight Zone. And as always, that means Justice. What did you think of?
I think overall, I enjoyed the first episode of the original Twilight Zone more.
Yeah.
Like, just comparably. It's still good. And I would say this has better cinematography than either of the two episodes we watched.
This honestly felt like a movie.
Yeah. The cinematography for it is fantastic, which I'm not surprised by. Jordan Peele has fantastic cinematography in all of his works. The soundtrack is weaker. Like, just the soundscaping is weaker. It's not bad. It's all just much more understated. And it doesn't use it to build suspense, which I think the original Twilight Zone did very well. And I think part of that really just comes down to the like 60 years difference in time.
Well, also, and I said that this might be the case when we were talking about Twilight Zone, the original. This, I don't want to step on toes, this, from a cinematographic language, reads a lot like Black Mirror.
Yeah, kind of.
The colors, the lighting, the camera angles.
Yeah.
It's all very, like, clean. It's all very clean.
Yeah.
And in a way that, like, it doesn't have its own personality.
I mean, I think it has some with some of the shots. And I think I would say probably like I was saying, the 60-year difference is probably why we see such a difference between the importance of sound versus camera and camera versus sound now.
Yeah.
Because like the original Twilight Zone has some good, interesting shots, but your cameras weren't as mobile. You have good options for great shots. So I think they focus more on the sound. And honestly, because Foley work never turned out super fucking great in the early 60s, they didn't worry about it as much. So the backing track of music and stuff always seemed to sit a bit louder in the mix in the original Twilight Zone. Whereas this does focus more on like some ambient sounds and things.
Like but
that means the music is put farther down in the backing.
I'm not trying to shit on it by like comparing it to Black Mirror. It's just something I noticed very much about, like, the color palette.
Oh, yeah, it uses cooler tones.
Was very, and, like, it's funny to compare color palette because, like, the 60s doesn't have specifically a color palette. It's black and white.
But that creates its own feeling, so.
Yeah. This has a very, like, Black Mirror, especially the newer seasons of Black Mirror, which, in this Twilight Zone's defense, it came out in 2019. Newer seasons of Black Mirror, like, 2022, 2024.
Yeah.
So, like, in that regard, it's more like Black Mirror might be taking
cues from Jordan Peele style.
Which makes sense. Jordan Peele is a great director
of horror and
like,
suspense.
Like, if you're going to take lessons from somebody, you should be taking lessons from the best, and he's one of the best. But
so I assume these are your thoughts on it now that I haven't had a chance to ask you?
Yeah, sorry. I enjoyed it.
Good, bad? Okay, there we go.
I enjoyed it. I think some of the visual language from the original Twilight Zone has been lost. And that's in part due to 60 years, 70 years almost of difference between when they were shot.
The evolution of film, like what we focus on. We focus much more now on the camera and what we're looking at. And we do obviously still care about Foley work and backtracking, but not as much as like the original Twilight Zone did.
I like it. I would watch more of it. I
Agreed.
Greatly enjoy it. Would you watch more?
Yeah, after episode 1, I would definitely still watch more.
My biggest complaint, regardless of everything I just said about it looking similar to Black Mirror, my biggest complaint is still that The Twilight Zone, if we're going to call it the Twilight Zone, if it's not something new,
please set that framing a bit earlier.
Use the framing device that the Twilight Zone gives you. Don't make us sit through over 11% of the episode.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was using 11% to be cute, but like it's actually closer to 20% of the episode.
Yeah.
Before you start your framing device.
Yeah.
Because then it's not a frame anymore, right? Like, if the first fifth of this show exists outside of the framing, then it's not part of the framing. It's not part of the story being told. It's not part of that framework.
Yeah.
And I think that's a loss.
I would agree. But, you want to move on to episode 2 now?
I mean, I guess, if you're going to make me...
I am.
Okay.
So we have episode 2, Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Starring Adam Scott. And, like, we didn't talk about this enough, I think. Tracy Morgan, Camille Najani. Camille Nanjiani. And this episode is Adam Scott. And I'm sure other names that I should know, but I don't. Just like the old Twilight Zone, 2019 Twilight Zone, doing a really good job of, like, picking out famous actors and actresses and, like, starring them in these...
Yes. But, like, with the OG one, I didn't feel like they were picking these actors because they were famous. They did pick some, but, like, and then in the 80s, they were picking people before they hit fame. Either way, though, they do still have great actors. They've always had, like, a good eye for actors.
Yeah. Adam Scott's in one of my favorite TV shows right now.
Severance,
If we ever get more of that series, because...
But, so, this episode is an homage / almost remake of one of the original 60s episodes, 20,000 Feet, well, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, in which the main character was originally played by William Shatner. And then the movie that we're going to watch, also based on this episode, where the main character is played by John Lithgow, and now this one played by Adam Scott. So
was it Lithgow in the movie?
Yeah.
Was it not the other way around?
No, Shatner in the 60s, Lithgow in the 80s.
So it was Shatner before he was anywhere close to famous.
No, the episode was 1963.
So yeah, it was William Shatner before he was anywhere close to famous.
Was it?
Yeah, if he's like Star Trek was like when he hit it big.
Yeah.
This would be like easily a decade or more before Star Trek.
That doesn't sound right.
We're still in black and white at that point, aren't we? 1963?
Yes.
Yeah, that's... I mean, he'd been in some shows, and he'd, like, done a couple movies, but, like, mostly TV movies, and never, like, a reoccurring character. So, yeah, this was, like, before he was...
I mean, he'd done a bunch of shows, arguably. Like,
yeah.
A bunch. The Ed Sullivan Show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
But as one-offs.
Encounter. He was in The Men from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, yeah, okay, that was a pretty big one.
Yeah, so, like, he had legs under him already.
It just doesn't, like, in my brain, it doesn't click that he's, like...
That he did things before Star Trek?
No, like, not that he did things before Star Trek, but, like, that he was celebrity before Star Trek, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but he was. He just wasn't as big of a celebrity as he is now. But honestly... we didn't have, like, as many big celebrities at that time. There were some, obviously, but, like, not a lot. Not to the level that he's become from Star Trek.
Okay. He is actually in the movie as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Neither did I. But yeah, he's in the movie as well. Yeah. I don't know the name of the episode of The Twilight Zone that this is based off of. The movie is The Horror at 20,000 Feet in the Air.
Yeah, and I think the name of the episode is The Nightmare at 20,000 Feet in the Air.
This is Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Yeah.
So, you can obviously see where the name is at least derived. So, let's get into it. I don't know a lot about the original Twilight Zone episode or movie. I've not seen either of them as of yet, which is, I know, a huge gap in my Twilight Zone knowledge because I know at least that episode is widely considered as one of the more popular ones.
And the film is not widely received well at all.
Yeah, I'm excited for the film.
It's been received.
This cold opens like the first episode.
Which is fine.
No opening narration.
It's fine. Sometimes in Twilight Zone, we didn't get opening narration right away. We saw a bit, and then we'd get the intro.
I'm still not liking the cold open, even if you can rationalize it. But it's Adam Scott. He's been chosen for additional screening as he's getting ready to get on an airplane. He goes through the extra TSA screening, which, as of the time of this filming of this episode of TV, the extra screening at TSA had never successfully stopped a plane bombing or hijacking, just so we're clear. That still has not happened.
So then he goes to the commissary store and is going to grab a magazine with the head article in it being The Incivility by
Justin Sanderson, which is the name of the character that Adam Scott is playing.
Which we learn very quickly because another man also goes to grab it and he's like, wait, you go first. And the guy's like, wait a minute, you're the writer for this. You're Justin Sanderson. I saw you on an interview. He's like, yeah, that's me. He's like, oh, that's very nice. Like, you go ahead and have it. So then
the way they're acting is like there's only one copy of it left.
There's so many copies.
Like, there's an entire shelf of this magazine. Like, each shelf is an entire shelf of one magazine. And it's like an 8-shelf rack.
Like, I get it. You're having your meet cute. It's fine. But you can both get the magazine.
They end up...
Justin's like, well, you know what? In the name of civility, why don't I buy this one for you?
So he buys one copy of the magazine. I thought he wanted one for himself, but I guess not. And then the guy has him sign it for him. He's like, can I get you to autograph this for me? Make it out to Joe with an E.
Yeah, and Justin looks very surprised. I mean, it makes sense. I don't think many magazine writers often get asked for signatures.
Yeah, probably not. But, like, I think in some ways it'd be really cool to have, like, if you enjoy a specific Nat Geo writer or something.
Yeah, or, like, hell, even a fucking, like, cracked writer or something. Like,
or,
BDG. If you went BDG and write an article.
I don't think BDG writes for physical media, though.
Yeah, I know. Like, I was saying, if you, for some reason, had physical media for, like, a BDG magazine, you're like, hey.
BDG is Brian David Gilbert. He's an online persona known for his work with, I forget the name of the original company.
Poly something or other?
Yeah, Polygon.
Yeah, Polygon.
And now he is just more of an independent online comedian, although he is currently working with Dropout
on the game show Actually.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, like, if you were a fan, obviously, like, it'd be great. I mean, I think that's true for a lot of things. There are people who are definitely do things that appeal to people, and they have fans that just don't get asked for autographs a lot.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I think I don't think it'd be that surprising as the writer for, like, a New York Times story, not New York Times, but, like, Time Magazine story.
Yeah, I guess.
Or a Rolling Stones story. And if your story is, like, the headline story for that issue, somebody meets you and is like, hey, could you sign this copy? Like, I think it probably happens less strictly because people don't carry around magazines with them typically.
Well, that and, like, and you might really enjoy a writer, but never see their fucking face.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to say. It's like, but in this case, Joe recognizes him. Joe gets him to sign it. He signs it to Joe with an E.
Yeah, and then we follow Justin, and he's talking to his wife on the phone.
And it sounds like they're having, like, marital issues, but then, like, it resolves itself to less about marital issues and more about Justin himself. He, like, apparently saw some really traumatic stuff in his last assignment because, again, he's an investigative reporter.
Yeah, in his last assignment before, the thing he wrote the Incivility about.
Yeah.
Which, if that's your title, I assume you saw some shit.
And he's like, but don't worry, like, Tel Aviv's not going to be like that. It's not, he says, he compares it to somewhere else, but I don't remember where.
Yeah, I don't remember where.
He's like, it's not like that. It's going to be much more like a desk job. It's much more relaxing. And like, she's like,
okay, fine. He's like, hey, on a completely different note, like, my flight 10:15 is, today's October 15th, and my flight got delayed from 9:30 to 10:15. What's the chance of that? Neat, right? And she's like, yeah. Just a little anecdote to, like, simmer things down. And then
I want to be clear. I don't think that's neat. I think that is an ill omen. Like, that doesn't feel like,
oh no, that's some Final Destination bullshit. You're like, oh, I'm about to die.
Yeah, that's like, hey, so flight 10:15, it's October 15th, and we're leaving at 10:15
from gate B15. Nah, man. Nah. I'm gonna go home.
I think I'm gonna miss my flight by accident.
Yeah.
I took a serious case of, like, diarrhea. Look, man, I'm stuck in the bathroom.
I'm one of the biggest writers for their magazine. I can get another flight.
Yeah, I'll just be like, hey guys, missed my flight. Is there any way I can get another one?
If I have to, I'll pay it. But like, oh no, oops, my bad.
The thing is, me as a human being would not recognize that. Like, the fact that Justin is like recognizes that and comments on it, I would not in my day-to-day life be like, oh.
Oh, I totally would. I would recognize that. But
it wouldn't like catch my brain.
I got pattern brain.
Like,
my brain's like pattern.
Watching a show or reading a book, my mind immediately catches it and goes, oh. In real life, I'd be like, huh, weird. And just keep going.
Yeah, no, my brain would catch the pattern and be like, you're in Final Destination, be like, that's a movie, brain. But also, if we die, we die. But, so he gets on the plane, is boarding.
And as he's boarding, this family is having issues because they were apparently informed that their child didn't need a ticket because he was young enough that he didn't need a ticket.
Yeah. Now the flight attendant's like, hey, it's only children like 3 and under. They don't need a ticket.
So he's going to need a separate ticket.
We can get you one. They can cover it.
And it'll be discounted because the flight's only like 2/3 full, but he is going to require a ticket.
And they're like, but you said first class is full. And they're like, yes, we would have to put him in the main cabin. They're like, that's not great.
And so Justin's like,
hey, my seat's right over there. They can have my ticket.
Yeah, if you just want to give them my ticket so they're all in first class together, just sit me where you need to sit me. Like, it's whatever.
And I don't know for certain. I think part of the reason why they chose this up is to show that he's not a horrible guy. He's he's fairly nice. But also the family they used here was a Middle Eastern family, seemingly of some practicing form of Islam. And I mention that strictly because as his mental state degrades later, he very much comes across as quite racist at several points. So I think it's meant to underscore just how much he breaks down in this.
Also, I don't want to be that guy and draw actual modern politics into a show from 2019.
Yeah.
But I don't think going to Tel Aviv is going to like pan out for him, even if he gets there, as less stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't, like, Israel you know.
I mean, hey, it was 2019. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They weren't explicitly committing genocide, just calling for it.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, he gets moved back out of first class. Also, as much as this makes Justin look like a good person, in real life, never do this.
You know.
Not because, like, you'd be rude to separate a family like this, but because IRL, in real life, people do this intentionally to try to pay less for tickets.
Yep.
And try to guilt other people. Like,
yeah, unless that flight attendant has agreed to prorate your ticket or bump up a next flight that you have, don't do it.
Well, also, like, people will buy tickets on, like, airlines that let you book your exact seat.
Yes.
And for an extra charge. And instead of, like, paying the extra charge to book all their seats together so that them and their child are together, they'll just book 3 seats and then, like...
Anywhere, and then take the 3 seats all together.
And then try to, like, guilt you into not...
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
You paid for your seat.
Yeah, like I said, the only way to give up your seat like that makes sense, in my opinion, is if you have come to, like, hey, I will be prorated for this ticket or whatever at, like, a step above, basically what it would have been, right? Or if I am getting a same level flight later for free.
Yeah.
Which I know happens. They will do that sometime.
But Justin goes back into, like, I guess business or economy class.
Business. He has enough legroom, I would say it's business.
And he sits down after putting his bag in the overhead.
Well, as he's going back, he sees Joe, the guy from before.
Yes.
And then he puts his bag in the overhead, sits down.
Which also, Joe earlier was like, I'll be seeing ya.
Yeah.
Which was, like, a weird thing to say to somebody you meet randomly. Typically, when you meet somebody randomly, you don't say, I'll be seeing you.
Especially if you definitely don't travel in the same circles as them.
Yeah. But anyways, they're on the same plane, and Justin goes to sit down, and he opens up the, like, pocket in the seat in front of him, the back pocket.
Like,
and he sees what I can only describe as a Zune.
I mean, kinda, but no.
It's like an MP4 player.
It says MP3. It blatantly says MP3 on the top of it. It just says MP3.
But it's got a large enough video screen that it's definitely an MP4.
No, because that's not a video screen. If you look at its display output, and, like, it's much more pixelated, it's not showing videos in that. And it's, like, just black and, like, that greenish gray early screens you would have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it is just an audio player.
There's an MP3 player.
And the front of it looks like it's a speaker.
Yeah. There's an MP3 player in the pocket, and he, like, picks it up and looks at it, and realizes that it has a headphone jack.
And he is using AirPods.
Yeah, well, Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah.
And
so he reaches into the pocket to find the complimentary headphones.
Yeah, and, like, he's looking at it.
And that's how I know he's in business class. He's not having to pay for those headphones.
And it's showing that it's got a podcast on it currently that's paused called Enigmatique.
I think the person on the podcast that says Enigmatique.
It's the word enigmatic combined with mystique.
Yeah, I don't like the way it's pronounced. It's bad. It annoys me.
And once he gets the headphones on and starts listening to it...
Headphones that he grabs from the person next to him, seat in front of them.
Yeah, because his didn't have them. It opens up, and it's telling the story of the disappearance of Gold Star Flight 1015.
Yes. So when he originally looked at it, it says the disappearance of Flight 1015. He's like, huh, neat. He's in this coincidence headspace vibe, so I assume that's why he's going to listen to it. And then it's like, hey, this is the exact same company you're flying with, Flight 1015.
Yeah. And he doesn't actually even question it till the podcast mentions the captain's name.
Yes.
And he pulls out the headphones, he looks at his seatmate, and he goes, did our captain say his name was Captain Donner?
Yeah, because he gets to that point just as the captain's making his announcement speech at the beginning.
Yeah.
And there's like, I don't know, man. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Leave me the fuck alone.
So they're in flight.
He doesn't say it like that, that is the guy's energy.
Yeah. So they're in flight, and the podcast is talking about how with most flights that have disappeared,
there's very little information.
And most of the time it's like some small thing that went wrong, like a crack in the fuselage, or like a loose screw or something. Like something small cascading into a larger failure. But with Flight 1015, they don't really know the story.
And then, before we get into them actually talking about anything that could be wrong, we get Jordan Peele popping up to do his narration. We see him on an in-flight screen.
Oh, yes, that's
doing his intro for it. And then we go back to...
Yeah, so on the podcast, the podcast host is talking about what we do know is that at some point after takeoff, the plane hit a bird, which is always like considered a bad sign, a sign of ill omen.
I mean, before that, he gets more panicky when his seatmate bells before they take off.
Does he?
I think so.
I thought his seatmate just left after he tried to get him to use the same headphones.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, his seatmate doesn't, like...
Yeah, his seatmate does bell on him, but it's not before they take off. He just bells and goes somewhere else because the plane's empty enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
Because his seatmate specifically bells right after this bird, because the podcast is like, and when they hit a bird, which is a sign of an ill omen, and then they hit a bird.
At 10:21 p.m. exactly.
Yeah, at 10:21 p.m. And he's like, holy shit. He jumps up, he's like, pulls his headphones off, he's like, hey, I need you to listen to this. I think this is about the flight we're on right now. And the guy's like, what?
No, it's just before the bird, because when he jumps up from the bird, he stumbles back to the other one because there's no one in his way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he scares the guy off just before the bird hits.
Yeah, because he's like, he takes his headphones off before the bird hits. He's like, look, I think this is about
this
podcast.
Flight.
This podcast is about the flight that we're on, and it's saying that we disappear at 11:30.
Bro, those were just on your ears. I don't want lice or anything.
And he tries to force the headphones onto this guy, and the guy's like, nah, fuck it, and gets up and walks away.
Yeah.
And then the bird hits the plane engine, and
he jumps up,
and then he starts hitting the button for flight attendant.
Well, he goes to the bathroom to calm down and repeat his mantra that we saw him muttering under his breath earlier, which is the past is the past. The past is the past.
His wife reminded him of the mantra. He's like, yes, I know, the past is the past.
Remember what the doctor said, the past is the past.
And so he has a panic attack, goes and sits back down, and then starts hitting the button for a flight attendant.
And they take forever to respond to him. He pushes it at first, the flight attendant just peeks at him, doesn't gesture for a minute or anything, just looks at him and then moves back into her space, so he pushes it again. She pops back out, holds up her finger for a minute, and then just appears to resume talking to someone, so then just starts spamming it.
Mm-hmm.
So the male flight attendant is like, fuck it, I'll handle this.
And he's like, hey, did we just hit a bird or something? I could have sworn I saw something hit the engine.
And the guy's like, I don't know, they don't tell us anything, but there's no way we hit a bird. We are far above that altitude.
Yeah, there are no more birds. And
he's like, how do you know there are no more birds?
Justin's like, what do you mean there's no more birds?
Look,
that's an apostrophe.
The government sets their flight path below airplane flight paths. Otherwise, airplanes can interfere with their shots sometimes when they're surveilling people.
What do you mean there's no more birds? That's such a preposterous statement. Do the birds just not exist anymore?
Yeah. And the guy's like, look, I just need you to calm down. Everything's fine. And then he walks back off. And then the pilot comes over the intercom and is like, hey, the storm that we were trying to avoid seems to be going a bit faster than we thought. So it might get a little rough, but we are still going to avoid it.
And then Joe speaks up from behind him. He's like,
because he has jumped up into the seats behind him.
He's like, I used to be a pilot.
That was a bird.
We hit a bird. So.
And he's like, yeah, but I'm not a pilot anymore. I did get this for free, though, because I used to fly with this company. It was a bird. Yes, the steward, the airline attendant didn't say anything, but that's because they never know anything. They're good people. The pilot's good, but the attendants don't know anything. We don't tell them.
Well, also, he's like, I used to fly with Gold Star, but I made one too many mistakes, and as a way of punctuating that, he takes a mini shooter of
alcohol,
the little in-flight bottles,
yes,
and just knocks one back entirely.
Yep, and then he heads off back to his seat.
So Justin takes the headphones, puts them back on, and starts listening. And the podcast host is getting into what we do know about the flight, because
there are three major things that could have caused the communication issues that cut us off. There are three things we know that happened that could have caused it in some manner, is what the podcast host is saying. And then we start with one of them. They're talking about maybe it was potentially bomb or some electronic device or something. So Justin goes off to search and finds two Seekmen watching a video on their phone.
Yeah, they're watching cricket.
Yeah.
Literally the best sport in the world.
We do not need to get into how much you love cricket for having never watched and or played it.
I've watched cricket. I've just never watched a full match.
Yeah. Yeah, you've never watched cricket. You haven't watched a full match.
I don't think that's fair.
I hope I'm saying it. So he's trying to get them to turn off the phone. He's like, hey, I don't think you guys should have your phone out. Bro, it's fine. It's in airplane mode. And they're like, he's still going off and they're like, hey, we're Sikh, He's like, yeah, I know. That's not the issue.
Yeah, that just means you're equal to everybody else around you.
I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, so if you guys go turn your mouth, they're like, sure, man. And then just keep watching. After the flight attendant comes up and is like, hey, leave them alone. This is not your job. Go back to your seat. They are fine.
So once he gets back to his seat, once they corral him back to his seat, I should say, he puts the podcast back on, and the podcast starts talking about if it's not an electrical thing, we have to examine what we do know. And what we do know
is the passenger manifest.
And so then we know that this
Igor Orlov,
a former member of the Russian mob, turned state evidence in witness protection, was on the flight to Tel Aviv to testify against the Russian mob.
Yes.
And the Russian mob would do anything to prevent that. So
was that something that down the plane? Was the U.S. Marshal somehow involved?
Yeah, and they also mentioned that they know U.S. air marshals on the plane. Mm-hmm. And so he being Justin, begins to look for this Orlov.
No, he begins to look for the air marshal first. Because he wants to resolve it with the air marshal first, and then when he can't find the air marshal, then he confronts Igor.
Oh yeah, so you're right. He talks to the flight attendant, he's like, hey, look.
I know there's a U.S. Marshal.
Not a U.S. Marshal.
U.S. air marshal, sorry.
Air marshals are different than U.S. marshals. U.S. marshals...
I know, I meant to say U.S. air marshal, but I forgot the U.S. part. I forgot the air part.
The air part's important, though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Though arguably, maybe the podcast got it wrong, and it's not an air marshal. Maybe it is an actual U.S. marshal, because this guy's in witness protection.
Although there should be a marshal on the plane. There is not a marshal on the plane from what we can tell.
Yeah.
Just an air marshal.
Maybe they're pulling double duty. Maybe they're a U.S. marshal who just happens to be in the air.
I don't think that's how air marshals work.
What I'm saying is this flight doesn't have an air marshal. They just have a marshal, and the podcast people got it wrong.
I don't think the podcast
Trust me,
people...
podcast people get things wrong all the fucking time.
Podcast people never get things wrong, and if they do, they will rectify it in post. So you'll never find out that they got it wrong to begin with. I know. I'm a podcast person.
Sure.
I'm a pod person.
But, so, the flight attendant's like, I don't know that we do, and even if we did, I cannot tell you.
And even if we did, like, even if there is a U.S. Air Marshal on the flight, the pilots wouldn't know, we the crew wouldn't know.
And even if we did, we wouldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Do not bother them. That is their job. Do not bother other people looking for them. You have no business dealing with a U.S. Air Marshal if there even is one. And he's like, okay, fine. So then he starts looking.
Well, no, before he starts looking, he kind of heads back to the seat again.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Joe stops and he's like, look, if you're looking for he talks to Joe.
Yeah.
He's like, he initially accuses Joe of being the U.S. Air Marshal. And Joe's like, I'm not a U.S. Air Marshal.
I'm definitely not then.
He's like drinking to punctuate the point. He's like, if I was the U.S. Air Marshal, they would fire me so fast because I'm way too drunk right now. And he's like, but look, if you're looking for somebody who is being deceptive, all you have to do is behave deceptively to draw their attention.
Yeah. I mean, which to this point, he's not super wrong because the person we end up finding out is the U.S. Air Marshal has been giving him looks. We have seen this person on camera give Justin looks multiple times because he's already being weird as fuck on this airplane.
So, because he doesn't know who the U.S. Air Marshal is, he then goes to these two Russian dudes who are asleep in their seats. And they're dressed like Russian, like the equivalent of Russian dude bros. Like they're
wearing the full-on windbreaker
tracksuits, necklaces, and so they're asleep. So he starts going through their bags.
And the flight attendant was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah,
and he's like, "Look, the Russian mafia is trying to kill Igor Orlov."
And these guys are like, neither of us are Igor Orlov. We don't know who you're talking about.
We are athletes. And then this bearded guy, a few seats behind him, stands the fuck up and like tries to take off down an aisle.
Like he comes running towards Justin. And he's like, "What do you know?"
Yeah.
He's like,
so then the flight attendant's in between him trying to break him up.
And then this lady who's been watching Justin grabs him and is like, "Hey, not yet. Sorry, no."
Yeah. No, here everyone is now with their phones out, pointing at Justin and recording it, and we get the podcast mentioning our third subject of interest is journalist Justin Sanderson, and it mentions that this video of him being weird as fuck on this plane was uploaded just before they lost all connection. To which I wonder, have they confirmed that Igor Orlov was part of the Russian mob and was going to do anything, or did they just take this journalist, this well-respected journalist's weird diatribe on this plane that's been recorded as face value?
So you're asking, is this video the proof that they're using?
Yeah.
Because are they bootstrapping? You're asking if they're bootstrapping?
I'm asking if they're bootstrapping it.
I don't know.
Because
this podcast is from the future.
Yeah.
Not our podcast. Our podcast is distinctly from the past.
Also from the future.
Our podcast is distinctly from the past.
Yes.
When you listen to it, it will have been recorded the day prior at the very minimum.
Yep.
And edited. This has been recorded in the future, edited in the future, and then posted in the past.
Yes. So it's like unclear when they would have gotten the information, like if Igor had gone through everything, whatever. We do not know, but like if it's not, it has to be like more than 4 or 5 years out, because there's no way this information has been released to the public yet in that time period, probably. So like, I'm just wondering if they're bootstrapping it. Yeah, I had that same thought at this point. So because of this outburst, because of this like, the Captain Donner leaves the flight cabin and proceeds to the passengers to like get in Justin's face and warn him like specifically, "You are a danger to these people. I need you to sit down or things will happen." And Justin's like, "I'm the only one trying to do stuff. If you look, it's something like 11:15 tonight, you're going to say the words, 'Good night, New York.' That's going to be the last thing anyone hears from this plane. Please do not say that. If you say that, this plane is going to go down." Yeah. And he's like, "Are you threatening my plane?" And he's like, "No, it's this podcast. It's from the future." So then the woman who has literally been in the aisle next to him this entire time announces that she's the air marshal and ends up zip tying him. Mm-hmm. And is like, "Hey, we're going to make sure you have help waiting for you when you land. There's definitely something wrong with you." And he's like, "Look, I need you to believe me. Yes, I've had like nervous breakdown, post-traumatic stress breakdowns in the past, but that's not what this this is completely different. Please, you gotta believe me something's going to go on with this flight.
And she's like, look, I know that you would rather just believe that what you're experiencing is real and that you're right rather than that you could possibly be in the wrong and suffering from a delusion.
Yeah.
But I need to go talk to the captain right now. I just need you to sit tight.
Yeah. So she leaves him alone with the MP3 player, so he starts listening again.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like, what could have averted this disaster, basically? And he's basically trying to think of like, what could avert this? What could I do?
Before we get into this next segment, we do need to mention that one of the things this plane has, and it's a weird feature for the plane to have, is every passenger has access to like
a live screen feed of the cockpit,
which is so weird.
Yeah,
so weird. But anyways, that's important.
So he tries to get Joe to help him out. He's like, "Hey,
you're a pilot. You could safely land this, right?
Like, yeah, like you could reroute us to Canada and land it safely."
And Joe's like, yeah, I can do that. And he like immediately agrees. He doesn't like hesitate at all.
Yep.
He's like, I could incapacitate the crew, and then I could drop the cabin pressure and increase the temperature in the plane so everyone passes out. He says it goes to sleep, but like...
And he's like, but the cockpit is locked to prevent invasions. And Justin's just like, I mean, the code's probably 1015.
No, Justin doesn't say the code is probably 1015. He goes, oh, I know what the code is.
It's 1015.
And he's like, and Joe goes, what, did your podcast tell you? And he's like, actually, yes. But yeah, the code is 1015. Because of course it is.
And Joe goes to do his plan, and he leaves Justin with a canister of oxygen so he'll be awake.
He's like, hide this, you'll need it so that you can stay awake. Then Joe rushes the cockpit, enters the code, and...
beats the flight crew unconscious, and everyone can see it.
And everybody's panicking. They rush the door, but they can't get the door open before they pass out. And then Joe's in control of the plane, and he gets on the intercom. He's like, it's time to relax, everyone. Drops the cabin pressure, and people are starting to pass out until only him and Justin are awake in the plane. And over the intercom, Joe's like, hey, you're right, Justin.
The past is the past.
You taught me so much, and you're right. The past is the past, and there's only one way we can escape that.
And he says, good night, New York. Then slumps into the pilot seat with a satisfied smile because he also passes out because he doesn't have oxygen.
And then the plane makes its final descent through the turbulent sky of the storm, and it's crashing because...
And Justin realizes, oh shit, he's the pilot that crashed the plane.
Yeah. Justin's like, I'm the reason why the plane went down. I fucked up. They were right to handcuff me. Yeah. I fucked up.
And then we pick back up with everyone alive on an island.
Well, initially, not everybody alive.
Yeah.
We pick up with Justin, crawling through the sand.
A la Lost.
Yeah. He finds the MP3 player with the podcast and picks it up, but he
picks it up and it's like, hey, the mystery of Flight 1015 Part 2, the end of civility.
And the host of the podcast explains that a cargo ship eventually rescued all the passengers from the atoll that they crashed into.
Well, almost all of them.
Except Justin Sanderson, who vanished, never to be found. So as Justin picks up the MP3 player, hears this, looks about, he sees the boy that he gave a seat to.
Yeah.
And he tries to talk to him and kind of starts walking after him.
Yeah.
But then he sees other people appearing.
And they all start to kind of surround him.
They're all bloodied.
And very, very angry.
Yeah, and they're blaming him. Justin reaches down to grab a rock to defend himself. But
and then they swarm him. And that's the end of the episode.
Well, that's the end of the episode except for the outro.
Yes.
Which we cut along the beach to Jordan Peele on the beach. And he's like, well, as Justin Sanderson learned, sometimes the flight path to hell is paved with good intentions in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the episode. Justice, what did you think of episode 2?
I think it was fine. Good overall. Again, I kind of wish they would do more with the soundtrack to add suspense. It's not bad. It's just not really... It doesn't really feel like it's doing anything.
Yeah. Also, as much as I like the cast of the episode, not just Adam Scott, all of the cast give their... not just Adam Scott, but the entire cast does a really strong job in this episode. The show just never, this episode never, catches. It just feels like it's spinning its wheels the entire time.
Yeah, it feels like it's so close to clicking, but something just doesn't catch correctly.
Yeah. But anyways, Justice, what do you think of episode 2?
Like I said, I think it was fine. I don't think it was as strong as the first episode.
100%. I already asked you what you thought. Yeah. My bad.
Which is weird, because the first episode also felt like it spun its wheels a bit too long. I think there's just a problem with it being an hour long.
Yeah, 54 minutes.
Yeah, I personally always enjoyed Twilight Zone when it was shorter. Season 4 in the original series went to an hour long. And keeping it short makes it feel more fast paced in the suspense. If you do it right, builds still correctly.
There is something to be said for brevity within the realm of suspense, thriller, and horror.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think in some ways that's why we were doing Fright Flight the way we were doing it.
Yep.
Is because they're one of the key aspects of horror, in my opinion. And Twilight Zone is in lots of ways a horror series, a horror anthology. But one of the key things of horror is the less you actually tell about the quote unquote monster or the like evil, the darkness, the actual horror thing of the horrors, the more impactful it can be.
I would agree.
Which is why in a series like Look-See, where every episode is like 6 minutes at most, you don't ever find out like what the Look-See is.
Yeah, like you can take guesses, you see it, but that's fine. But like you don't know why it's coming after people.
Exactly. Or like Hi, I'm Mary Mary. We like these things. We don't know like why she's experiencing why she's trapped in this house. And they're important things, but we're only left to theorize and use our mind to fill in the blanks. And your mind is the most powerful tool a horror writer can like use against you.
Yep.
But in the same way that we're like having more time to like create a more fleshed out story, lets your story...
never made a question. Wait, did they just bootstrap this?
Yeah. Well, like where the story, it gives you more room to like flesh the story out and like create in-depth character. It also pulls back the curtain a little more on the horror if you don't do it quite right. And I think that's what the longer episodes of Twilight Zone suffer from. Anyways, I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed the second episode as well.
Yeah, I would still watch more.
Obviously, like Twilight Zone's great. I would watch more without a doubt. And I think for now that's gonna be the end. Like
until we watch more Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Which the movie is also based off the same episode. This episode is based off of, so that's going to be intriguing. But we want to thank you for flying with us. And if you want to get in contact with us and like maybe get the access code to break into the cabin and beat us unconscious so you can crash the plane and end the show forever, you can attempt your best at that.
It's fine. There's no code. It's a slide puzzle. Everyone hates them.
Yes, they do. But if you want to give it your best attempt to figure it out, you can reach us in a myriad of ways.
You can email us at copilotsreview@gmail.com.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Blue Sky. Probably more Blue Sky than Twitter going into the future because Twitter is continually cannibalizing itself into a disgusting, putrid place of awfulness. You can hit us up on either of those at Copilots Review.
Or you can find a link to those, our Discord, our YouTube, our Patreon, by going to copilotsreview.simplecast.com. And yeah, that's really it.
So, thank you for flying with us.
And please, fly again soon.
In the Twilight Zone?
I don't know. I feel like we're really just taking that whole, like, Twilight Zone bit to the outer limits.